I wonder if conversation is possible, at least in the United States. Probably in the rest of the world. However, I live in the United States, so I can probably speak more plainly about that. Although I have been around about half of the world I have visited. But visiting and living in is two different things. And real conversation needs to begin with listening. And listening can only happen if we negate everything that we know. That's the only true form of listening, is the negation of what we already know. Because what we already know is of the past. Communication or conversation has to do with discovering. And discovering can only happen when we listen without already knowing everything. So now we've made a complete circle, haven't we? So the question is, are we capable of listening? Are we even capable of listening with one another? You notice I use the word with, not to. With implies encompassing all of us together. To implies a direction. So my question here is, if we cannot communicate, how is it that we can ever solve the problem that we now face? Which is the possibility, maybe even probability, of end times. The old religious folks might get their wish. The what do they call it? The evaporation. No, it's not evaporation. Well, it's kind of like the same thing, isn't it? Going to the heavens. I still can't think of what they call that. It'll come to me in a moment. The rather somewhat famous person named J. Krishnamurti said that what is needed is discontent. Discontent, however, needs to be at the highest level of your life. In other words, you need to be discontented with living on a planet that goes from war to war to war, that kills and maims and murders people all over the planet. Here in America, you need to be discontented with, perhaps need to be discontented with, we spend $750 billion a year to bomb people all over the world and elect presidents who grab women and does whatever he wants to do to them. We have a place here where it is possible for each of you to see your own discontentedness. Is there such a word as discontentedness? That means to say that you're not contented with the way our world is progressing. And that would not be surprising, because I'm suggesting that our world is not progressing, it's regressing. It is moving ever more quickly towards, as Bucky Fuller said, the end of the experiment called life on planet Earth. My suggestion here is kind of the same as Jay Krishnamurti was suggesting. Discontent. However, that word doesn't seem to carry enough energy with it, unless you consider that what he meant was total and complete internal, no gun, no bullet, no bomb, revolution against all that has happened from day one until now. That level of discontent would transform you, anyone who might be listening, all those thousands of people who are gathered to listen. I like to lie every once in a while. Because the other possibility is some huge happening that causes all sorts of chaos. Another war, a big war. Maybe even here in America, the one that our last POTUS wanted to cause, a civil war, so he could stay in grabbing women whenever he wants to. But my suggestion is, if that were to happen, then we would all be concerned with ending the war and wanting the fighting to stop, as opposed to simply being discontented with the manner in which we are living our lives. The problem here is, as I have mentioned before, those who are successful in this insane environment will continue to move forward and continue to be more successful, make more money, and not realizing that the greater level of success a person has in an insane environment, a mentally ill, kill them all, go to war environment, the higher level of insanity that they display. I've mentioned this before in some of these conversations that we have. And that's the reason, if you will, allow me to use that word reason, that we will continue towards ending this experiment called life on planet Earth, because those who are not successful in this insane society will continue to strive to be successful. You see, they'll push themselves more deeply into personal insanity in order to be successful, so they can have a jet and 2 or 3 houses around the world, and who knows what all of those things are that people end up with, while children are thrown into prison and cages and suffering and starving to death. And here in America, people, especially in today's COVID world, businesses going broke all over the place, and people doing the same. And yet those who are more highly evolved in the domain of insanity, do you see the opposition, speaking that I'm speaking in observation. No, that's not the right word. These things are very difficult to speak about because I'm suggesting that the greater level of success that you achieve requires a higher level of insanity to achieve it. And yet, the people are all pushing to be just like Gates and those people who are highly successful at taking advantage of insane people. They figured out how to take advantage of, rip you off for all your money, rip you off for everything that you're working for. Not to say that there isn't some form of making it on your own. So here's the premise that I'm putting forth here. At least here in America, in the year 2021, it is nigh on to impossible to have a conversation with people because it requires listening, and listening requires that you know nothing. Listening requires that you clear your mind so that you can hear what's being spoken. Today's world, somebody says, I'm religious, and almost the listening ends. Not that that's not proper. It probably is proper. You see? I just proved my theory here. So here is, again, my query, my question. Is it possible for you to create within yourself the possibility for you to listen? And just as a little hint, what it takes is for you to be willing to be honest, keep your word, have integrity, speak the truth. All of those things are non-existent almost in America because we live in excuse in America. We live in justification. We live in explanation. We live in anything that clears us of making a mistake. If you ever heard our past president, he's never made a mistake. He knows more about everything than anybody else knows. And that's the worst, absolute worst sort of person to be on planet Earth, much less to be the leader of the free world. Anyway, I'm just rambling along here. 14 minutes might be enough. I haven't had anything to say for 3 or 4 days, so I just considered I would come on and maybe give my old buddy Jay Krishnamurti a little, not that he needs it, but a little push here. Because his contention, and I agree, is that we need to be discontented. But we need to be discontented with all of it. Every single iota of what has happened from when we were an amoeba, when we were whatever we were when we crawled up out of the sea, or We'll leave you religious people out. And up until today, up until this 1 second here, 14, now it's 15 minutes and 6 seconds. All of that has gotten us to where we are, and all of it is 100% failure. So if you care to perhaps have this experiment called life on planet Earth continue, you might need to be completely discontented with what got us here. Not necessarily because it was wrong, but because it's what got us here, and to move from here forward, we have to have something new. We need a new consciousness, a new way of being. We need a consciousness that is created for 2021 forward, not 2020 backward. Because for thousands of years, we've been going backwards psychologically. We've been moving forward in our physical being, inventing new cars and new electric and all of those things that have come about for the last few hundred years. But psychologically, we're killing far more people, raping far more women. We're far more lost in knowledge and thought and belief. And we've completely, 99.9% lost the space of creation, of intelligence, of truth. So, if you consider this question, will you negate 100% of your history, all of it? Leave it behind. If so, then you will have created the possibility for creating a new planet Earth, a new group of human beings that no longer kills, no longer goes to war. As a matter of fact, no longer even needs to kill to eat. That is not only possible, it's here. It's already been created. What it needs is people to create the same thing, so that we co-create peace on earth, starting with internal peace. And that starts with creating for yourself the ability to listen. Because listening requires that you drop every belief. You move outside of thought. You no longer live from knowledge, all of which is of the past. Knowledge, thought, and belief are all of the past. It's all dead. If you can do that, I can tell you, you will discover ecstasy. You will discover the space of creation, intelligence, and truth. Will you?